Greetings, everyone. I'm Kimberly with Aisle Planner. Joining us today is also Courtney with Aisle Planner and our special guest, Penny Baird with Blessed Magnolia. Hi, everyone. Hi, Penny.
Hi, how are you?
Really awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time today to share your insights and pro experience. We are going to discuss our checklist today, the mastering of checklists, your project checklist. So we're going to get started here in just a moment. We'll let more people sign on. We'd love to hear from you guys, where you're all from. I'm in San Diego.
I'm in Austin. Any Texans here? I don't know.
I'm actually in Florida, so any Floridians here too. So
We're all across, the three of us anyway.
Awesome. Greetings. I cannot tell. Orlando. Hello, Laura. All right. So we're going to get started talking about your checklist, project checklist, which essentially is the project template. And we kind of wanted to discuss high level at first, more about the checklist, how you think of this, and really understanding that this tool can be very powerful. And it definitely is the foundation of your projects. We'll give this just a few minutes before we jump into everything, as everyone is getting logged on. Hi, Dorsey and Lori from Maui. We've got Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Houston, Texas.
I see a few from Houston. That's my hometown, so shout out.
Maryland. We've got Poland in the house. Hello, Claudia. Nice to see you here. All right. How are we doing? Are we ready to get started?
Yeah, I think we can jump in. Thanks everyone for being here and saying hi.
And please do use the the comment section for any questions. We'll do our best to get to all of them. And if we happen to miss your question, our team is also following along. So we'll try to provide you resources directly in the chat. But if not, or if it's something that takes a little bit more further assistance, please write into support when you're logged into Aisle Planner, the little chat bubble down at the bottom right of your screen. So the checklist, what is it? This is your project management best friend. It's going to help you and your clients stay on top of everything so nothing slips through the cracks. It really can be a powerful driver. So items that you set up and you take the time to get set up in this checklist, specifically at the template level, are really going to help kind of set the foundation of your specific workflows. This checklist serves everyone. So whether you're a planner that only uses the checklist internally for yourself, whether you use a little bit of your own checklist and you have some client tasks that you need to accomplish, or if you just turn the checklist over to your clients 100% and let them have at it, this checklist is going to serve anyone and everyone on your team and your clients as well. So going forward, checklist methodologies. So understanding how the checklist works, and we will dive into the mechanics of that and really jump into some samples. But we want you to start thinking about kind of how you would normally use the checklist in your day-to-day. Some pros will use the checklist internally for their own tasks and their team, and also have tasks that they're going to assign a client, keeping in mind that you have different permissions within the checklist. So thinking about what access you're going to give them and how you're going to manage those tasks. You've got pros. We have different kind of use cases that we want to talk through here. Pros that use the checklist for internal management and also have a set of client tasks that you assign out to them. Some pros use the checklist for only internal, keep that to themselves and really manage the client separately and don't get them involved with tasks. Some pros give the clients full access to the checklist, a value add to using Aisle Planner, but otherwise kind of stay off it and do your management internally a little differently. So there's a lot of different scenarios in how you can approach this checklist, which will kind of set the tone for how you set it up, knowing and understanding what permissions you're going to grant your client and how you're going to use it either internally or alongside with them. Anything you want to add here, Courtney, before I go on to the next slide?
Yeah, I think just the reason that we wanted to highlight this is because I think when you start to use a checklist and you think about all of these different tasks, we we don't want it to be, it shouldn't feel overwhelming for either yourself or your clients. And so that's why we sort of talk about these different methodologies of, having, and we'll go into templates, but having your template created, but creating smaller, manageable sort of chunks of tasks, whether or not that's by month, by phase. We'll kind of talk through that. And then really just, it's all about, there's not really a right or wrong way to use it. We do have a lot of folks who use the checklist as, like Kimberly said, a value add. So if you're a venue, you might offer up a checklist as something like, hey, client, go ahead and use this as you like. So you don't have to come into it thinking there's only one way to use it. There really are a few. And that's where I think coming up with your specific workflows and use cases is really important before you start just kind of diving in.
Exactly. And we will jump into our templates. But one thing we want to point out is that we have a default template in there in Aisle Planner for you. And a lot of folks kind of get intimidated by it or think this is just too much to think about. But we want you to pay attention to that default checklist. Don't ignore it. It's really there to kind of kick off inspiration if you're looking for some guidance of what categories might I plan in if you're a newer planner, or what time frame should these tasks be accomplished. But from there, it's really just guidance. If you prefer and want to, and we want you to, get in there, fully customize it. You can strip it down to a blank slate and really start to build up your own workflows. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and jump into our project templates. We'll start there, and then we will transition over into a project and talk more about the checklist in the project. One thing we do want to point out is within every project template, you have a list of categories. And categories not only work within the checklist, but really do set the foundation of your project, since this is a project template. So even if you aren't using certain categories in the checklist itself, being mindful of all the categories that are set in that template, because that will impact how you may use other tools if you're in the design studio or in the contacts and you want to categorize something accordingly. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and switch screens here. We'll pull up Aisle Planner. So getting started, over in the right-hand corner are your business settings, and this is where you're going to find all of your templates. And click over into templates from there. Now we have quite a bit here to show you as some samples, but when you first land here, if you're brand new to Aisle Planner, you will not have any of these templates already built out, and you will have the option to start either a new wedding template or an event template. Do keep in mind which one you are working in. When you go to create your wedding type project, so the project type you're creating is a wedding, you're only going to see the wedding templates you've created. Anything that you create in the new event or just event non-wedding is going to show up as other. So when you're creating non-wedding events in your projects, when you're first doing that first step of creation, you're only going to see your others. So do keep that in mind as you're creating them. The first thing you're going to notice, and we'll just start with the wedding one, is when we add new wedding template, you're going to start out with the Aisle Planner default. And from here, we want you to give this a title. And we will suggest that you really start with your most robust planning workflow. So from there, what you can do is you can make a copy of this one and then further edit it down to other workflow scenarios you might have, whether that's partial planning or shorter time frame planning versus a full service, longer time frame planning event. So give that a name. And here for description, this is just internal, so no need to put too much detail here. This is just an internal description that might help you and your team kind of decide which template you want to select if you get really granular and you have a lot of templates that are similar. Next, you're going to see edit checklist, edit budget, and advanced settings, which will jump you into the category. We're going to spend time focusing on the checklist itself. But one thing I want to point out before we get into that are your advanced settings, as a lot of folks don't necessarily click all the way down. These are all the categories that we will start you out with in a default checklist. But again, keep in mind, we want you to completely customize this to your workflows. So all these categories here, and what this means up top. In menu just means that in all the drop-down menus where you can see a list of categories, that these will show up for you. In checklist means that you have that category in the checklist. Same goes for design studio, contacts, budget, and notes. If you have this box checked, that means that if you add a note, you add a vendor, or you add a folder in the design studio, you can categorize it as such. So for example, maybe you have cake as a category, you use that category in different tools. If you did not have it checked under budget, for example, you wouldn't be able to just automatically categorize something under cake. You'd want to either make sure that it was checked under budget, or if you didn't have the category, that you've gone in and added it and then checked the tools under which you want to be able to organize accordingly. Lastly, is an event is the categories and the items that will be added to the guest manager in your project. So we do start out these default checklists with a few items just preset as events. And you'll see those as the drop down in the guest manager. So you'll have ceremony, reception, brunch, engagement party, and rehearsal dinner. If these aren't regular events that you do normally, you can set this template up to uncheck those. So you're really starting your project off more in line with what you actually do. Or you can ignore them. If you don't take action on these events or invite guests to them, essentially they're not being utilized, so they really won't make an impact. Let's go ahead and jump into the default checklist to get started. So the first thing that you're going to see is our default, and we have quite a robust list here to kind of spark that inspiration. And just scrolling through the categories, we have quite a bit of, this is a wedding template. But what we want you to do in here is kind of think about these categories and decide, are these categories that you use in your daily planning? If you don't see a category in this default template, go ahead and add a category, and you can continue to build within that category. And just to show you a little bit of mechanics here for those of you that are new to Aisle Planner. When you hover next to the category, you'll see a plus or a trash can. And on the plus and on the trash can, the plus is an add, the trash can deletes. If a category does not pertain to you, let's say engagement party was something that you really never get involved with, or one of your templates doesn't really touch an engagement party category or tasks, you can delete the entire thing. It will remove the entire category and all the tasks associated with it. You also could come in here and rename a category. Maybe you use a little bit different verbiage, so you can do that as well. And then fine tune the tasks to be more in line with what you do. If you don't do something, or you don't think this is a task that pertains to you, you can go ahead and delete it. What you can also do here is drag and drop. So if you want to reorder the way things sit on this page, you can do that here. And then when you create these projects, this is the template and the new checklist that will be in that project. Within the tasks, to give you some information on that, you're going to have the line item itself, which is the task. You'll have a details area. So this is really helpful if this is a task for clients and you're providing a little extra instruction, links to something. If you're asking them to do something, maybe it is hire an officiant or obtain event insurance, whatever that task might be. If you can provide a little bit extra detail to help them get that task accomplished, this is a good place to do it. You will also see a pre-assignment. And this pre-assignment is really just kind of a visual cue for you to note who this task will be assigned to once it's in the project. And from my experience, I think keeping this high level is the best approach. I know, Penny, I think you do something similar where you have kind of a client planner task.
Yep, I actually add either the client, the lead planner, or my operations manager, because my operations manager does a lot of the onboarding of our clients and also does a lot of the tasks. If we're just day of and they're just doing monthly check-ins, they do a lot of the tasks before the lead planner is actually assigned. So I do put that in there in my template. So when she onboards it, she knows exactly who has to be assigned that task when she onboards the client.
Awesome. And it's really helpful too, especially if your list is really long, that you can get in there and visually very quickly see which ones are client, planner, or kind of a combined shared responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, you also have your time frame. So this is where you will set when you want this task to happen, whether that's for yourself internally or whether this is going to eventually become a task that you assign to your clients. You can set this very general. So you can see here, this is 4 to 5 months. You can also get way more specific on that and indicate how many days out from the event date. And when you create the project using this template, all of these dates will sync to the event date. So everything will adjust accordingly and kind of show you more of this is the month of July, or this is the week of July 15th to 20th as you fine tune on these due dates. You can also add reminders. So keep this in mind for yourself. Setting this up at the template level is really going to save you a ton of time at the project level. Do you want to be reminded before the task is due? And if so, how many days before? And you can continue to add reminders, as many as you need. And then if you want to reset it, you just click clear due date, and that'll take it back to this state where you can type something in more general. Let's say I wanted this to be 1 week. You just click in the box, type that, click outside of it, and there you have that set now to 1 week. So with that, basically you can move all of the categories around also, just like you can move and drag and drop tasks around. So this right here view, we're looking at this by category. Timeframes are on the right, so you can kind of get your mind around the category and all the tasks within that specific topic. Your other view on this template is a date view. So right over here in the upper right-hand corner, click on date, and that's going to shift the view, removes the categories, and it puts everything in that time frame date view. Same list, same exact tasks. It's just a different view of how you might want to look at it or further fine-tune the order in which you want to put those tasks in. As you can see, as this just goes down and gets closer and closer to the event. So it just counts down chronologically. Not going to talk too much about the budget. This is where you will preset budget categories and line items. I don't want to ignore it since it's right there on this screen, and this is part of the project template. But this is also where you can preset the budget framework. So when you create that project, you get this checklist and you get that budget with those categories and those line items. So I'm going to jump into a couple of the samples that we've created for you just to kind of give you some ideas, get the inspiration flowing. Here you have the default. If this was the one that you've just spent all this time on and you've really drilled down on those timeframes, the tasks, even pre-assignments, and you've got it really dialed in, the concept here is to make a copy of that one. So you're never having to create from scratch each and every template. You base it off of that main one that you've done, make a copy, give it a new name, and then go into that one and further edit it down to a different workflow, a different service or client type. So for example, there's one here for birthday celebrations. We know a lot of you aren't just focused on weddings. You do events, you do corporate events, you do galas, you have a lot of non-social event clients. So to give you an example, birthday celebration is a much shorter need to do than maybe a full service wedding might be. So we have guest list here, budget financial, event planner tasks. One thing to also note within your tasks is you've got a visibility tab. Visibility is if your clients are going to be able to see this task or you want to hide it so clients cannot see it. And this also will depend on the permissions that you give them. So if you give them full access to the checklist, and we will visit the permissions, they will see everything. They will have full access. They'll be able to add tasks for themselves. They'll be able to add tasks for you. They'll be able to make assignments the same way you can. So full access to the checklist is truly full access. They can add categories. They can really utilize the tool fully as much as a pro would be able to. If you set the task to private, they're not going to see it. They're not going to see it at all. Even if they have full access, those will be hidden tasks. So if you do kind of share the checklist responsibility with clients, maybe go ahead and set some of those to private so you don't have to worry about clients seeing them, and then they can see everything else. Any questions so far? It sounds like
I think we have a question. I was also just going to take a minute to say, so Kimberly a second ago showed all of the different sort of templates based on sort of service types like birthday party, wedding coordination, that kind of thing. One of the biggest things that I feel like, or I guess one of the most common things that we see is if you open up a new project and you just drop in that default checklist, you're going to be spending so much time editing it. Whereas if you edit a template for yourself first and then open the project, that's really the key to success here. And that's why we're really on talking about the different template types because, and kind of doing that first before you open a project. Just because, again, you don't want to be manually deleting and reordering in the project. You want to be doing that here. So just kind of highlighting that again as kind of one of the key sort of takeaways is making sure that you're doing this before you're really getting into your project so that your project is much more functional. And then we did have a question from Linda here.
Can you reorder the sections the same way you could reorder the items in the sections? So let me jump in and make sure I'm answering that. Can you reorder the sections? So you can reorder the entire categories. You just click your mouse on it and kind of grab it and hold it down and then look for that black line that's going to kind of show you where you're about to drop it. If that's what your question was, Linda. So you can drag and drop the tasks themselves, or you can drag and drop the categories and reorder it that way. Hopefully that answered the question. As far as advanced settings and going into the categories themselves here, this is an alphabetical list. So depending on what it is you're adding, it will show up alphabetically.
I also wanted to take a quick second, just going back to the categories too. And I know maybe Penny has some thoughts. This is another good opportunity, even though you can go into the checklist and rename categories and add and delete categories. Again, this is a great opportunity to take a look at the categories for this type of project. So again, think birthday party versus full service wedding planning versus, they're all so different. And also think about your own naming convention. If you don't use the term cinema or whatever it might be, you call even attire, maybe you call it something else. Go ahead and change it here at the category level so that it makes sense for your project across the project. And I know Kimberly said this, but I think this section is a little bit hidden. So this is also one of the key tips and like why we try to do these webinars is to show some things that can really help take your projects to the next level of not just accuracy, but also your time savings. You're just going to find once you start opening up new projects, if you're taking the time to edit these categories, create these checklist templates, your time spent on that project is going to be way less. So again, I think this is kind of a section that we see not utilized a lot or not opened a lot. I don't know, and Penny, if you have experienced that.
Yeah, I think too, what you made a good point when you said, sometimes we just continue as pros, we get busy and we just continue to keep opening projects and we haven't really gone in to fix the templates. But I think what finally changed me to help me realize that I needed to fix this because it made my life better was that I'd spent so much time in a project that I got the checklist the way I wanted it, that when I took that project to create my templates. So instead of trying to go to templates and then recreate the wheel, if you've already taken the time to do a project, you have you've added things to that checklist that make it perfect, then take that project to create your template. I mean, I know you can't drop it and drag it, but at least you could open it in two screens and then be able to just copy things over to help you. So that way in the future, when you are opening new projects, you've got it because you did it in another project. So sometimes that can just seem overwhelming to even think that. I know that seems silly, but I know for me, it took a long time for me to realize, why do I keep doing this? Why don't I just make the template? And I finally did. And then it did make more sense. And then once you do make the big template, copy that template, and then start to bring it down to what you need for that type of event versus continuing to rebuild time and time and time again.
Exactly. Thanks. That's a great pointer. So like, for example, we have here full service planning 12 months out or 12 plus months out, right? It's the most robust. From there, make a copy, jump into the 6 months, right? And then whittle it down. You might have a totally different time frame. You might not even handle something because it's already been done because you're partial planning. One thing we say too, it's also easier to take away at the project level than to build from scratch. So maybe you do leave a few things in place intact at the template because when you get to the project, you can further tailor it to the specifics. But the goal here is to minimize the editing and the work that you have to do at the project level to even think about these things, right? To kind of have your methodology and your concept of how you use a checklist, how you're going to ask your clients to use it and engage with you. And then kind of set the template accordingly, set the tasks as private accordingly. And when you invite them, set permissions accordingly.
And we're definitely kind of asking you to do the harder part. This is the part that requires the most brain power and maybe teamwork and collaboration, but we're asking you to do that now so that you will thank yourself later. You really will. You'll find, a few months, 6 months, a year down the road, just how quickly you're going to be able to move. And so it's definitely just finding that way for you to think about your workflow and your services and what you're providing and getting that into paper. It's not on actual paper, but digital paper. So that, again, there's not so much constant, why am I doing this, over and over again the same way? Because like Penny brought herself as an example, but we see it all the time. I mean, I think it's probably the most common thing that we see, even with folks who have been in for a month, 2 months, 3 months or more, projects without templates that have been created. And it's just sort of this default that might not make sense. It might be a default that says this is 12 months out, but your event is 6 months away. So it's sort of really honing in on that. Yeah.
And it's not useful to you to like have this huge robust checklist where you're like, these 5 things apply to me, but the rest of it doesn't. And then if your client can see that whole checklist and timeframes that are out, it just isn't that customization and that kind of bespoke to like, this is your project. You've got that template dialed in. So when you create that project using the template, it's really kind of honed in closer to that workflow and those timeframes. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. And I do think too, just even thinking one step further for these pros that, could be thinking about scaling and growing their team and then doing this. I couldn't have handed onboarding over to my operations manager if I didn't have my templates in place, because she would never know how to fix that checklist for me if I didn't fix it myself to begin with. So I think it's not just starting off and then learning how to use it. I think it's thinking about the future and scaling, and how do I remove myself as the owner of the company from that part of the position and give it to an operations manager or to a virtual assistant or to an assistant to handle these items for me, and then know that I don't have to go back and fix anything later. So it's just a lot of forward thinking too for yourself.
It's a great way to put it. It's the forward thinking.
It's the forward thinking.
Forward thinking, even though it's so easy to think about today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
We do have a couple quick questions, if you don't mind, Kimberly.
Let's do it. Is there a way to create a mock-up client folder to use during discovery calls as a preview of what the workflow would be like? Yes, absolutely. So every account that starts with Aisle Planner has that sample wedding, Bethany and Will. Some of you, if you've been around a while, have probably archived it. If you are brand new to Aisle Planner and you haven't spun up the sample wedding, go ahead and do that. Create project. You should see that sample there ready to go. If you've already created it, you may have either, archived it or deleted it. But that sample project is free. It doesn't count towards your subscription. It's got all the tools fully populated, and we want you guys to go in there and use that. One, explore it if you're new, just to kind of see what the tools can do and what things look like when it is fully populated. But once you do that, you can change the name of that project. You can assume it as your own and do with it what you want. I think it's a great sales tool. If you haven't booked someone yet, or you want to use it for onboarding, maybe you haven't invited them in the project, but you want to show off Aisle Planner, use that sample project. You can even create a template for yourself that is that sample, or you can just do that at the project level, because if you're just kind of showing that, but if that's the template, or if that's what you're showing, if that's what you want to be reality, then do a template to match. A lot of pros also create an internal business project. That internal project can be for anything. You can use the notes, the design studio, checklist for internal tasks. You add your team to that project, and you guys can assign tasks to and from each other, marking things complete, and have internal events and projects as well. So between the sample wedding that is free, not counted towards your subscription, or you can create your own internal project.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then we have this one.
Okay, so it'd be very simple to possibly copying categories. So for example, a DJ task, both me and the client would like to copy all of that and just change the name of it, for example. Is that possible? Okay, so if it is a category and you want DJ to be, I think this actually has a DJ, maybe it doesn't, our default. If you don't have DJ and you use it, you can add it and then just check it across the tools that you want to use that category. Or if it's banned and you don't want it to be banned, I guess I'm not sure if I'm
I think
answering.
what she's saying is she has the same tasks for DJ and the same tasks for band. So if she's creating, let's say, 15 tasks under DJ, she wants to copy those same tasks over, I think, in the same template for band. But I don't think.
I see what you're saying. So kind of the idea of like taking away at the project level is easier than building it. If you know you might have a DJ and those tasks are kind of the same, but it could be a band instead and it's similar tasks, I would do both. Have a DJ category and a band category. You can't copy, but you can just kind of replicate what you did, or you can copy and paste it in the sense you can copy the task, add a new one, and paste that data into a new task. And then if you get to that, you create that project, you use that template. When you're fine tuning before you onboard, as you go through and maybe assign tasks, which is the best practice in onboarding, is to assign them a few tasks to get them started. You could then delete that entire category. Maybe if you don't have a band or you don't have a DJ, you could just wipe it out. But if you needed to kind of be an either or serve both purposes, and depending on which scenario you have, or you can call it DJ/band. If the tasks are similar, it just kind of depends. But there isn't a way to truly just like duplicate the actual section itself. So if I wanted to duplicate bride's checklist and then rename it groom's checklist, there isn't a way to do that. You do have to actually build the tasks. But you can copy this, create the task, and then paste it. So it's just.
So it's like it's definitely a little manual at the template level. But once you create that template, even though you're manually creating both of those same tasks, then in every project, you're not having to do that again. So it's a little bit more work at the beginning, but that's a great request too. So I don't know if it's probably on our list. We'll report back, but that'd be a good functionality to add.
One other thing I wanted to talk about too, because a lot of pros do plan in phases. So you're a little less category based, but you're phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Penny, I think this is also kind of a practice that you work through. So a phase-based checklist, as you can see, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And what you do here really, and I'll just kind of jump back into that template, that default, is I am literally going through and I'm deleting everything. I'm taking it back to 0. I'm giving myself a brand new clean slate. And then I'm adding a category saying phase 1, and I'm adding tasks to that. You can kind of do it if you do think that the default is helpful, but that's not how you want to word it or say it. Kind of what I did to shape this one is I added phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but then maybe I look down at other categories. This one's actually been deleted, but in the maybe catering category. And I'm like, you know what, that task actually is relevant. So I'm going to drag it up into my phase 2, and then I can work on it a little bit and rename it, reword it, and then set a time frame for me. So the default isn't all lost. You don't have to fully scrap it, but it is there just for guidance and inspiration. We want you to get in there and customize it and make it your own. With the phase-based approach, these are actually categories, right? So phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 are categories. This is the category view. And then if I click over to date view, same thing, same list, same tasks, just organizing it in this date chronological view. And I have one category that's after the event that I have kept. This will look a little different in your categories that I wanted to just touch on. As now phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 are really what's on the checklist. That's about it. However, in your other tools, you still might want to categorize someone under contacts for a cake vendor. Or in the notes, you might have a note that's about cake tasting, cake images, things like that. So do ensure, even though you might take your checklist and peel it down to more phase-based, that the categories do start here for that project. So I do know some pros when you categorize your contacts. So maybe you have a cake vendor and they're a cake and they're a baker and they're a little bit everything, and you want to categorize them. If you do not have this checked, even though your vendor is cake, these categories are different than how you organize your contact list and your vendor. So just keep that in mind. Having a cake vendor in your contacts doesn't necessarily mean that cake will be a category that you can organize in contacts until you ensure that it exists and it is checked under that tool. And this default does have a lot of that preset for you. So it really is a matter of thinking about it, florals and gifts, or maybe rings you have nothing to do with rings ever, maybe on that particular 30-day coordination or month of coordination, maybe you just delete it altogether. So you really clean this page up and you're in control and you kind of know where all your categories are going to show up for you. Hopefully that makes sense. Any other questions specific to the templates themselves?
I have a couple saved here for when we talk about assignments, but we haven't quite gotten there. I think, let me see. Let's look at this one together. Is there a way to set the time frame as a specific month? Oh, yes.
Yeah. So if you go, well, I guess, let me see if I understand that question for a specific month. So this is more general and it syncs up to the event date once you create it. So if it's 30 days out, that will be 1 month before the event date, but it's non-specific here. So this template isn't where you would say December or November or March. It would have to be how many days in advance of the event that you either set time frame or you set specific due dates by days out. And then I'll show you kind of what that looks like over in that project when you create a project using one of those templates.
And we have this question too.
When you enter a comment for a task, does it send an alert? Everyone, it sure does. So we'll jump into now, let's create a project, use one of the templates we've created, see what that looks like in the project, and then go over and talk about inviting clients, setting permissions, and then assigning tasks from there. So we'll go ahead and be done with that. Now I'm going to go ahead and just jump over into sales. Best practice here, if you're using Aisle Planner as a CRM, you're going to actually create the project from the lead. So one caveat here, if you are not using Aisle Planner for sales or really get into lead management in the system, then you are going to create a project right here from your project dashboard. So there's 2 places to create the project. If you are using AP for sales and managing leads through Aisle Planner, you're actually creating the lead, creating the project from the lead. And then this way in the client record, everything from the lead moves over. So I'm going to use this Kimberly one as a sample. So we've sent contracts, she signed it, paid deposits, we're good to go. We're ready to move lead into client. So right here from the lead, I can either use the plus symbol here, or I can take action from the gold action arrow. And I'm always usually kind of doing it from down here. Create new project. This is the very important step where you select the template that you just spent all that time on and worked so hard for. This is where you build the project and you create this template. You build the project with the template. Right here is where you select that. So you're going to see the default copy. If you have not done anything or added your own, it's always going to be that default copy with all those tasks and all those time frames. So once you have yours in here, you're going to see that. And do keep in mind, you're only going to see the wedding templates because it's a wedding project type. If I go into event, kind of the other category, now I'm only going to see these template types. So when you're creating, just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and do this birthday celebration and we'll just call it B-Day for quick creation and just make sure that everything looks good here. Another thing to point out since we're here is you can disable tools. So if there are tools that you do not use in projects, you can go ahead and just disable them and they will not show up. And we'll go ahead and create project. No, we won't. Time zone. All right. So the lead itself turns to a booked status, so you don't have to worry about that lead anymore. And then now we have this brand new project on your dashboard. And just real quick, high level, for those of you that are new to Aisle Planner, all of your tools start out in prep mode. So you do need to release them before clients that you've invited are going to be able to see them visually. We always suggest invite yourself as a client, kind of get a feel for the system from both sides so you know what your clients see when they get an invitation, when they accept that invitation, and when they log in to their project. Maybe you have a tool in prep mode. They're not even going to see checklist if they log in and your checklist is still in prep mode. And that goes for all of the tools. So hopping into the checklist, you will see here up top too, this indication that it is in prep mode. And this is how you release it. So we'll go ahead and just release the checklist. You can't unrelease. So keep that in mind. If you're prepping this for clients, you haven't onboarded them yet, and you accidentally release it, you can't undo that action. But what you could do temporarily is go over to their permissions, set them to no access. So it removes their ability to see the checklist, finish your work, and then change their permission. So this was the birthday party that we created. So here is from that template. Here is the checklist now that I have in this project. And depending on the dates that we had set, the red dates do show up when they're past due. And what you can do here prior to onboarding is just further fine tune. Maybe this is something that you decide you want to keep internal. You want to keep that to yourself. You don't want clients to see it. Again, it will depend on the permissions that you're giving them. So same kind of views here. You've got category view, and then over here in view options, you can change that to that date view. So the same way that you can view that in the template, and you still have the ability to fully drag and drop tasks around in both date view and in your category view in case you need to fine tune it. Or for example, you get here and you have a DJ and a band category and you're only going with the DJ instead. You could just hover and delete that entire band category and it removes everything. So next, let's get into, if we don't have any questions at this moment, we're going to get into inviting clients, setting permissions, and then also doing task assignments. So over in the 3 more menu in every project, you're going to see your planning partners. The person who creates the project is automatically the lead planner, and the lead planner is indicated by a gold star next to their name. The account owner is automatically also added to every project for visibility. Some of you are the actual account owners if you're a small team or you're solo, so that will always be you. The larger teams, the person who creates the project is the lead planner. Excuse me. The owner is always added to it for visibility. And then if you need to add any other teammates, you need to add your teammates. In a lot of cases, not every planner plans every single project. So we let you add anyone else on the team who needs to be on this project. If you do not have a teammate on it, they're not even going to see this project on their dashboard. So just keep that in mind. Next, we're going to add client vendor. You do that right here. And go ahead and add myself. Once you add a client to the project, I haven't yet invited them. You can see send invite. What you'll want to do is really think about the tools that you're going to work with them, how you're going to work with them, and you're going to set their permissions accordingly. The checklist specifically has 3 settings. You've got full client access, and this is full client access. It really is everything. They can see the assignment overview page, the full checklist, every single task. They can drag and drop, delete, they can add. The only thing they won't do or be able to do is see the tasks you've set to private. You still have control over those, but with full access, they really can do anything that they need to with that checklist. You also have assignment only. So they will only see what you have assigned to them. They will not see private tasks. They will not see what has been assigned to their partner or anyone else on the team. Their focus is solely the tasks that you have assigned to them or a planner has assigned to them. And then the other permission is no access. And that just essentially removes the checklist from their view. So the tool doesn't even exist. So I'm going to go ahead and just go back to full. Now, before I do the invite, I want to show you guys, now that I've added the client to the project, if I go over to the assignments overview page, this is going to show you everyone that's on that project. So all of your team internally, and then any clients or vendors that you've invited show up here on the right-hand side. Now that I have added Kimberly to the project, I can actually start to assign tasks to her. She won't get notified yet. She's not invited, but this kind of gives you that opportunity to do some free work, get a few tasks in there. So when you do onboard with them, you've got a place to just start right away and say, here's a few tasks, and have that conversation. So let me head back over into the checklist one more time. Now I'll show you guys what this would look like if this was a pre-assignment. So if I had a pre-assignment at the template, create this project, and this task is a pre-assignment, you can see that that note is right here. So if you do have a really long checklist, imagine this being just kind of a visual cue for you to be able to quickly identify in this list which tasks are for client. So if I click into the task itself and you see you have add assignment, this is going to pull up anyone that's been invited or is on that project. So now that I've added, let me make this a non-private task. Otherwise I can't assign it to a client. If I add an assignment, you can see now that Kimberly is here. So I can add that to Kimberly. the pre-assignment goes away. So it's no longer pre-assigned because it's assigned now. And if I head back over into the overview, Kimberly has a task. If she was invited to this project, she would be notified. Clients, the same way as pros, get notified in app and in an email. So they'll get both, and they can also control notifications the same way you can under their My Account. So you can let them know that too when you onboard with them. If they're annoyed or if it's too much, one or the other, emails or in-app notifications, they can turn those off. Here within the task, you can see you've got details. So Kimberly would be able to, whether she's assignments overview, she would only see herself on this page and her tasks. If she's full access, she's going to see all of this the same way that we're seeing it now. Once you've created the project and you're working in the real live checklist, you also have comments. Comments are a really powerful collaboration piece. This checklist is one of the tools that you collaborate through. And these comments go to anyone that's assigned this task or on this project. So this is a great place to also then collaborate. Maybe this task is late. Maybe the client has a question for you. So you do want to encourage them to say, hey, we're going to use this task together. This is going to, keep everything on track. If you get to a task and if you have questions, if you're stuck or you need clarification, drop me a comment right here. And then as the pro, you also get notified both in app and an email that a comment was just made, and you'll be able to see the project and the task where that comment was made. You can click on it. If you're on the phone, you get that notification on your phone. You can actually just tap right on that and it will take you right into this task. So you can reply right back to it, or you can reply straight back to the email and it will feed right back into this thread. So this is a great way to kind of keep track of comments, questions, or things related and keep them on the topic which they relate to versus getting random texts and emails about all sorts of things. You really kind of want to hone clients into those tools in which, if they're talking about the guest manager and they have a question about that, they can ask you right here.
Yeah. Can I throw a pro tip on that too?
Please do.
Because I do phase-based planning, but I also have in my checklist, I have a whole planner task checklist. Again, because I forward thought about my team growing and then other event, leads being in there. So there are certain tasks that have to be complete, like a monthly check-in. If I see as the owner of the company, like I have it assigned to a lead planner and it's past due, I can simply just go into this checklist, into that past due item. I can put a comment, hey, have you had an opportunity to schedule that monthly check-in? And it's only to us as the organization, because I have those set to just being the organization that can see them. That lead planner, because it's assigned to, them, they get that comment that is me asking that question without us having to stop and have a meeting. Now we do have meetings, and it's important, I think, for that to have your meetings. But in a pinch, I can just go, hey, have you had an opportunity to schedule that yet? Do you need any assistance? How can I help you, with this? So when you do have a team, those kind of things are awesome as well, because it allows you to keep everything within Aisle Planner. You're not jumping out to Gmail. You're not, you don't have conversations everywhere. You're keeping everything inside Aisle Planner as a team, so you can go back to those comments too. So.
Right. Going back to them to reference them, whether it be to put the timeline together, details can be scattered. So the goal is to kind of aggregate things into the checklist task or the design studio or with a vendor itself about vendor management. Yeah, that's really helpful. I think we had some more questions, but
I was going to say we have about 5 questions, but if you want to get to a stopping point, whatever is best.
Sure. Let me just kind of touch on a few more things that we're looking at here. So you can see now that there's initials in this task, so you can tell that it was assigned. And over on the assignments overview, and it's also, assign tasks to yourself. You'll get the reminders that you've set up for yourself. And again, just a reminder, if it is set to private, then your client won't see it. And if they do have full access, just to remind, they see everything. So if Kimberly had full access, unless the task is private, but if this one wasn't, like this is visibility everyone, Kimberly can see that other Kimberly or Christina has a task assignment and can manage it accordingly. Could also assign themselves to it if they're like, oh, you know what, I actually want to be responsible for that. You can also assign multiple people to a task. So if you have the couple, or you've got a couple people working on the client end, you can assign both to them. And just a little note here, that little black star that you can highlight will indicate who has precedent, or who should be responsible. So if you're assigning it to 2 people, you can star the person that ultimately should be responsible to get the task done. Let me think if I'm missing anything else. Same idea, drag and drop categories and the tasks themselves. So if you do want to fine tune at the project level, you can get in here. But I think hopefully this makes sense. Compared to our huge default one, you create a birthday party and you have a birthday party template, or a party, or non-wedding, whatever it is, that you can see this is really fine tuned and kind of whittled down to be more appropriate to this type of event and the type of timeframes that this type of event needs to accomplish. I'll stop there. We'll answer some questions and see where that takes us.
We're getting them rolling in now, so we know this is I think this is where it kind of gets beyond the technical stuff and into more of like really thinking about your workflow and what works for you. So these are all great questions. So let's start with this one from Stephanie. If we can hide an entire category from the client view for internal tasks instead of just the tasks themselves.
That's a great question. You currently cannot hide the category. And I know that's a little funky. You can hide the task itself, but the category is visible. So if it was something that you wanted to say internal for, I don't know, keep it generic category, or but because we can't hide the categories just yet. I know that is a request we have, but for now you can just set the actual tasks themselves private.
All right, let's see. Here's, actually, can you go back? I just want to make sure we show everyone again how to select which template of the checklist, because this is, again, probably one of the most important pieces when you open a new project, selecting that correct template, and just making sure everybody knows where that is and how to do that.
Yeah. So we will, I'll just jump into it. Another random lead. I want to really drive home this because some people have skipped this step and it's really important. Project create, or from the main dashboard, create project. Right here is where you select that template, and it gets built into the project and you cannot swap it out later. And this is why we kind of onboard everyone accordingly, is do that project template before you create projects, because the projects you have existing will have to kind of live with the checklist that they have. You'll have to edit at the project level. When you create with your template, so let's say partial planning, phase-based checklist, this is where you select that. And now when I create project, it all gets built in. All those categories, all those tools, all those timeframes, and the event date sync up. And currently there isn't a way to swap a checklist. So really kind of think about that, all those different workflows that you may have, get that template dialed in. So as you're crazy busy with a ton of leads, a ton of projects and details, that you're creating a project with a template that's going to work for you and be ready to hit the ground running right from here when you create that project, because you've added the 3 to 6 month out checklist. It's got all the tasks and the timeframes are really dialed in to this type of event.
Yep. All right, here's the next one from a venue standpoint. Wendy, trying to better understand how they use both ceremony and reception.
Okay.
With those.
Yeah, that's a great question. Specifically in the wedding type templates, let me just head back over into our default one and go down into categories. Currently, the only 2 categories that you cannot delete are ceremony and reception. And if you notice, you've got trash cans as you hover, and you don't see a trash can at ceremony, and you don't see a trash can at reception. And the reason for that is, as you're right, within each project, we default start weddings with ceremony reception. That's just how it's hard coded. You can change the name here if you don't call it that. You can also, it's a required category. So you can not use it if you don't want to utilize it and have like ceremony reception. You can split lists at the project level. You can also rename it if you just want to say, wedding. But the 2 categories are hard coded into every wedding project. Your non-wedding events, it currently looks like event is what it says. So event is what is the one and only event, and non-wedding events. The wedding projects do start out with those default ones. You can uncheck everything except for ceremony, reception, and let me just make sure I'm covering this. We don't use reception and ceremony as an event. The event has both ceremony, reception, and checklist. So what you could do is not have like the ceremony in the checklist itself. Like you don't need to have that category. It doesn't have to be anything with task related. You currently can't remove it. It is what actually your guest list gets uploaded into. And that's another reason it is hard coded. So within the project itself, let me get over to the guest manager just to show you that. When you upload a guest list, and you upload, they go into automatically the ceremony reception. So that is kind of default. From there, you can then manage the secondary events. You can also split the ceremony and reception, and you can call this something different than reception if you want to give this more generic event or reception or wedding or whatever that is, but you can't entirely remove them at this point. So there's ways to kind of work around it, but you do kind of have to live with them existing. That answers the question.
It's a good point that, you don't have to use a wedding default template. You can use an event default template if you want to. Again, if you're kind of customizing everything for yourself anyway, you don't have to use the wedding template.
Right. You could create a project and create it as an other. This really just kind of has more built out and has all the verbiage and just some default settings that are related to weddings, but you're not restricted to it, or you're not stuck with that. You can create your weddings as events and create other type templates and name things as you want them, set timeframes and tasks and categories, however works best for you.
And Wendy, let us know if you have more questions after this, or if you're another venue and have more questions, let us know. But we'll kind of move forward. So question about, do the clients see the team members listed from their end?
They do. If they have full access and they click on checklist, they're going to see assignments overview just the same way that you do. And they're going to see full checklist. If they are planning partners, go back over here. If they are assignment only, then and I'm not logged in as this Kimberly, so I can't really demo it. Again, the good reason why to invite yourself as a client so you can like play with settings and permissions and really see what clients see. But if Kimberly was set to assignment only, when she clicked on checklist, she's only going to see assignments. She's not going to see a full tab because she doesn't have full access, and she's only going to see these 2 tasks that have been assigned to her and nothing else. Yeah. Assignment only does require that you do have to kind of do those assignments, but the phase-based approach, you can do phase 1 all at one time. And then when you onboard, again, onboarding is very important, having that conversation so they know what this task means, what's to do with it, and also know that like, hey, if you get stuck or you have a question, drop me a comment. I'm going to get it right away and I'll be able to respond right back to you. And they can even add their own tasks for themselves if they want to keep track of something and they want to create their own tasks.
This is a great, relevant question.
Yes, we are working on a pro dashboard. It is under development right now. So I'm not going to, 2025, be on the lookout for that. We hope to have it here in the next few months, but pro dashboard, an overview when you log in, instead of a project dashboard like you see now, a data dashboard. So you have more information as an org owner. You'll be able to see more information about your team and tasks and things like that. As a pro, just if you're an org member, you'll also be able to see things specific to your projects. So that is coming.
Awesome. All right. Let's see if we can, little longer one, but so Claudia is wondering if couples can see all tasks in the checklist, but not be able to add or delete the tasks.
So if you don't want them to be able to delete tasks you've assigned to them. So as the pro, you're saying, here's what I need you to do. And your clients go in and delete those tasks. That's kind of a trust, it's kind of a relationship issue. Onboard them as such. Hopefully that's not the case. If you say, I'll manage these, I'm just going to assign them to you. If they have full access though, they do have the ability. So you just want to onboard accordingly and get their buy-in that this is a team effort. We're working on this together, or, I have my parts, you'll have your parts, but I'll help you manage your parts, right? So you don't overwhelm them, which is another thing you'll want to keep in mind when you do give them full access. Do have that onboarding. I know our founder is a big proponent of showing them everything so they can see, like, look at all the work that we're going to accomplish in the next year or 6 months. But don't worry, I'll assign the things that you need to know in the timing to give you ample time to get them done. So it kind of just depends on that relationship and how much hands-on they're going to have in these tools. If you keep some of that internal, or you let them just have at it, or it's kind of a hybrid of both.
Yeah. And I think in that, because in my onboarding experience, it's the same way. Like, I let my clients be able, like, I tell them, hey, you are going to see this entire humongous checklist, even though we are phase-based planning. But I am going to assign you the tasks when I need you to assign them. Because if they're a full service planning, we meet every month. So I tell them what I need them to do. I just want I have some that are very anxious and they want to work ahead. So I don't want to keep anything from them, because if they want to work ahead, go right ahead. But I do tell them, please don't delete, please don't touch anything. Just, I kind of set that expectation up in the onboarding process that this is how we work together. So it's a fine line, but you can definitely put that expectation out there.
Right. Kind of set the tone early. And there are some pros we know that are very strict about how aisle planner, like, if clients mess things up, I've seen pros charge their clients for the extra work they have to do. So obviously that's not for everyone, but yeah, setting the expectation. We do have a live webinar we did a couple weeks ago on onboarding, specifically talking about that and different ways to kind of prep the projects, have that onboarding meeting. And that's where you have that discussion and showing them, here's how the tool works, here's what we can do together, and here's what to expect with planning with me.
Yeah. So I know that was the end of the questions that I've seen. I did want to take a quick second to just do a plug for, of course, Penny, and really, VA services in general. If you guys, here at Aisle Planner, we're happy to help you with Aisle Planner questions going into your account. We can help you kind of look at some best practices, but there are some amazing VAs out there that use Aisle Planner every day and have used it for a long time. So if you are looking for any help, whether or not it's workflow, designing processes, thinking about how to use checklists, or how to use, overall just how to manage the onboarding process, all of that, definitely, let us know, and we can send you their information. Again, I think we're just in the business of, yes, there is that dedication and commitment up front to really, commit to saying, I'm going to write this out. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get past this constant, redoing and redoing. But you have help. There's great help, actually. We have really, really brilliant, wonderful, kind VAs and partners and certified Aisle Planner specialists that we work with. So please reach out to us anytime. We could probably make each of these webinars 4 hours long, but we wouldn't do that to you. So we are going to end this. But checklist is definitely, we titled this purposely. It is really the foundation to your project. And I think we see probably some of the most hurdles with checklists. So maybe even we'll do a round 2 later this year. But yeah, thanks. Anything else the two of you guys want to say before we hop off?
I don't think so. I'm just grateful. Thank you, Penny, again.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to see you. I know we don't get to see each other often.
I know.
You guys need VA services, use Penny. She's amazing. And thanks, everyone. We can't wait for the next one. Stay tuned for our next webinar coming up in the next few weeks.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you all so much for having me. I love being here, and I love the product. That's why I've used it forever. So it's good. Anybody that needs help, we'd love to work with you. So
awesome. All right. Well, everybody have a great day. Oh, yes. Penny's info. Do you want to let me?
Yeah, I mean, do you want them to just email me or just go to, well, my
Yeah.
website doesn't really have it on there because the VA side of things is like hid from, because I just go it through you guys. I mean, they can email me if they want to at info@blessedmagnolia.com. That's perfect. And then we could definitely talk about it and see how we can help.
There we go. There we go.
Thank you.
Should have had that up.
This will be on the rewatch though. So anyone
There
that
you go.
isn't here live, we'll get this in their inbox so everyone will be able to.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all again so much. I love being here.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.